The probe drifted through the darkness of space, silent and alone. It had been traveling for over 300 years, carrying messages of peace from a world called Earth. Golden records attached to its side held sounds and images of humanity, waiting for someone to find them. Keelix stood in the research laboratory, his blue skin reflecting the glow of the holographic displays around him. The Vryn scientist was young, barely into his second century, and his curiosity often got him into trouble. Today would be no exception. "We found it near the Forbidden Zone," his colleague Harn explained, gesturing at the strange object floating in the containment field. "It's ancient, primitive, but the technology is fascinating." The probe was small, perhaps 3 meters across, with a large dish antenna and extended arms. Strange symbols covered its surface. Keelix moved closer, his large eyes widening with interest. The metal was corroded and scarred from centuries of micrometeorite impacts, but somehow it still functioned. "These markings," Keelix said, tracing his finger near the containment field. "They're not like anything in the database." Harn pulled up a translation matrix. "The computer is working on it." "Wait, here comes something now." The symbols began to glow as the AI attempted to decode them. "NASA. Voyager programme. If found, please contact who?" Keelix asked. The display flickered. Coordinates appeared, pointing to a system deep in what the galaxy called the Death Zone. A yellow star with 8 planets, the third one marked in red. "That's impossible," Harn whispered. "Nothing intelligent can survive in that sector. The gravity wells are too strong. The radiation too intense. That star produces deadly light in wavelengths that would burn through most species." Keelix wasn't listening. He was focused on the message embedded in the probe's systems. Pictures of creatures standing upright on 2 legs. Sounds that might be music. Mathematical formulas showing the location of their world. And something else. A desperation in how the message was crafted. A loneliness. "They sent this hoping someone would find them," Keelix said softly. "They're calling for help." "Or they were," Harn corrected. "This probe is over 3 centuries old. Whatever sent it is probably long dead." But Keelix couldn't shake the feeling. He looked at the images again. The creatures called themselves humans. They showed their world, beautiful and blue, covered in water. They showed their families, their cities, their art. They showed themselves reaching toward the stars. "We have to tell the Council," Keelix decided. 3 days later, Keelix stood before the Galactic Council in the Great Chamber of Zenith Prime. Representatives from 40 species sat in their environmental pods, listening as he presented his findings. The chamber was enormous, built to accommodate beings of all sizes and atmospheric requirements. The probe was clearly a distress call, Keelix argued. These humans sent it hoping for rescue. They might still be alive, waiting for someone to respond. Council Elder Vex, a Krillian whose species had led the galaxy for 10,000 years, raised one of his 6 arms. "Young Vryn, you speak of the Forbidden Zone. Our records show that sector has been quarantined for 50,000 years. The worlds there are death traps. High gravity, corrosive atmospheres, extreme temperatures, but what if something survived?" Keelix pressed. "Don't we have a moral obligation to check?" Another council member, a floating gas being named Wisp, pulsed with colored light. "The archives mention humans. They were cataloged millennia ago as theoretical Deathworlders, creatures that could survive in impossible conditions. But the classification also marked them as potentially extinct. The galaxy assumed natural selection would eliminate them. That's exactly why we should look," Keelix said. "What if they're trapped on their planet, unable to leave, sending these probes hoping someone would help?" The debate continued for hours. Most council members wanted to ignore the probe. The Forbidden Zone was dangerous. Resources were limited. Why waste time on a species that was probably dead? But Keelix's passion convinced enough members to approve a small rescue mission. 12 ships, lightly armed exploration vessels designed for first contact scenarios. Medical supplies. Food synthesizers compatible with carbon-based life. Translation equipment. "If we find survivors, we offer assistance," Council Elder Vex declared. "If we find nothing, we mark the system as confirmed dead and move on. Keelix of Vryn, you will lead this mission. May wisdom guide you." Keelix bowed, his heart racing with excitement and nervousness. The rescue fleet departed 2 weeks later. As they traveled toward the Forbidden Zone, Keelix studied everything available about humans. The files were thin. Ancient surveys suggested the species was bipedal, mammalian, and had developed basic tool use. The planet was classified as Class 12 Death World. the highest danger rating in the database. Gravity 3 times standard, the ship's AI reported. Atmospheric oxygen content 21%. Captain, that's an explosive gas. The world is essentially a bomb. But they evolved there, Keelik said. They must be adapted to it. If they're still alive, his second officer noted quietly. As they crossed into the forbidden zone, sensors started picking up strange readings. Old satellites in orbit around multiple planets, radio signals echoing through space, and something else. Something big. Captain, the sensor operator called out, her voice shaking. I'm detecting multiple contacts. Large contacts. They're not natural. How many? Keelik asked. The operator's face went pale. Over 200. They're in formation. Captain, they're warships, alarms blared throughout the bridge. On the view screen, space lit up with engine signatures. Ships emerged from the darkness, massive and angular, covered in weapons. They moved with precision, surrounding the Vryn fleet in seconds. A communication came through. The universal translator struggled with the language, then clicked into place. A female voice spoke, cold and authoritative. Unknown vessels, you have entered Terran space and triggered our defense network. Power down your engines and prepare to be boarded. Any hostile action will be met with immediate force. This is your only warning. Keelik stared at the screen in horror. The humans weren't dead. They weren't calling for help. They were armed, organized, and very much in control of their system. Respond that we mean no harm, Keelik ordered. Tell them we came to help. But before the message could be sent, several Vryn ships panicked and tried to run. The human response was instant. Blue lightning leaped between ships and the Vryn vessels went dark, their systems completely disabled. The last thing Keelik saw before his own ship lost power was a human warship moving alongside them. Through the viewports, he glimpsed armored figures preparing to board. The galaxy had sent a rescue mission to save humanity. Instead, they had just woken something that had been waiting in the dark for centuries. Something patient. Something prepared. Something that didn't need saving at all. Commander Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the TDFS Indomitable, watching as her Marines prepared to board the alien vessels. She had trained for this moment her entire life, yet now that it was happening, she felt a strange mix of excitement and dread. Status report, she ordered. All 12 alien vessels disabled, Commander. Lieutenant Park replied. EMP strikes were successful. No casualties on either side. They're completely helpless, Sarah nodded. That was good. Despite what the aliens might think, humanity didn't want war. But 300 years of scanning the stars and hearing nothing had made them cautious. When someone finally broadcast their location across space, Earth's response was simple. Assume the worst and hope for the best. Send in the boarding teams. Full armor, weapons ready but not aimed. Medical teams on standby. These beings might be hostile or they might be scared. Either way, we need information. The boarding pods launched, magnetic clamps securing them to alien hulls. Sarah watched through helmet cameras as her Marines cut through airlocks and entered the ships. The footage made her pause. The aliens were small, fragile. They cowered in corners, their large eyes wide with terror. They wore no armor, carried no weapons. Their ships were beautiful, filled with art and soft lighting designed for comfort rather than combat. Commander, Sergeant Rodriguez reported, his voice uncertain. These don't look like soldiers. They look like scientists. Or explorers, Sarah's stomach tightened. Secure them gently. We need someone who can communicate. They brought Keelik to the Indomitable an hour later. The young Vryn scientist was shaking as 2 Marines escorted him onto the bridge. Sarah had removed her helmet, hoping a human face might be less threatening than armor. She was wrong. Keelik stared at her with something close to horror. Sarah was average height for a human woman, barely 165 centimeters. But to the Vryn, she must have looked like a giant. Her bones were dense, designed for Earth's heavy gravity. Her muscles, even relaxed, were clearly visible. And when she smiled, trying to be friendly, Keelik flinched at the sight of her teeth. I am Commander Sarah Chen of the Terran Defense Force, she said slowly. We received your transmission. Why did you come to our system? The translator device struggled with their languages, but gradually it began working. Keelik found his voice, though it trembled. We came to help you, he said. The probe. Your probe. We thought it was a distress call. Sarah's expression went blank. Distress call? What probe? Voyager, Keelik explained quickly. We found it near the Forbidden Zone. It had coordinates, pictures. A message saying to contact you if found. We thought your people were in danger. The bridge went silent. Sarah turned to her communications officer. Pull up the Voyager program files. Images appeared on the screens. The golden records, the peaceful messages, Carl Sagan's dreams of reaching out to the cosmos, humanity's hope that someone out there would find them and know they weren't alone. That wasn't a distress call, Sarah said quietly. That was an invitation. We sent those probes over 300 years ago. We were trying to make friends. Calyx felt his legs go weak, but you responded with warships, with weapons, with an armada. Sarah looked at the trembling alien and suddenly understood the terrible misunderstanding. You broadcast our location across the galaxy, to species we know nothing about. From our perspective, you were announcing to everyone where to find us. We didn't know if you were inviting friends or painting a target on our backs. We were trying to help, Calyx whispered. We didn't know that, Sarah replied. We've been alone for centuries, listening, waiting, hoping, and the first response we get is someone shouting our address into the void. She paused. How would your people react to that? Calyx understood then. The humans weren't monsters. They were scared. They had been isolated so long that caution had become survival. Their overwhelming response wasn't aggression. It was fear. I need to contact my people, Calyx said. I need to explain before this becomes worse. Sarah nodded and had her crew set up a secure communication line. But when Calyx's message reached the Galactic Council, the response was panic. Council Elder Vex appeared on the screen, his 6 arms waving in distress. Calyx, what have you done? The Deathworlders are real. They followed you. They're not dangerous, Calyx tried to explain. It's a misunderstanding. They disabled 12 ships in seconds, Vex interrupted. Our sensors show their vessels carry enough firepower to crack planets. Calyx, the humans are coming to Zenith Prime. The entire Sol system fleet is moving. Over 200 warships heading toward Council space. Sarah stepped into view of the camera. The Council chamber erupted in chaos when they saw her. To most species in the galaxy, humans were nightmare creatures from ancient warnings, beings that evolved in hell and somehow built civilization. Standing there in her military uniform, Sarah represented every fear the galaxy had suppressed for millennia. Council members, she said calmly, I am Commander Sarah Chen. We mean no harm. But you broadcast our location without permission. You sent ships to our home without introduction. You triggered every defense protocol we have. We need to talk. Face to face. We need to understand each other before someone makes a mistake we all regret. Wisp, the gas being, pulsed with anxious colors. Why should we trust you? Sarah considered the question. Because we've kept your people safe. We've fed them. We've provided medical care. We could have done anything to them, but we chose mercy. Now we're asking for the same consideration. The Council debated for hours while the human fleet traveled through space. Sarah returned Calyx and his crew to their ships, their systems repaired and functioning. She gave them food synthesized to match their biology, medicine for those injured during the panic, and a complete database of human culture. Show them who we are, Sarah told Calyx. Show them we're not monsters. We're just people who spent a very long time alone. Calyx returned to his ship with his crew, everyone quiet and thoughtful, as they traveled back to Zenith Prime ahead of the human fleet. Calyx studied the database Sarah had provided. He found human music, beautiful and complex. Human art, showing emotions that matched his own. Human literature filled with stories of hope and struggle. And human history, a long tale of a species that fought against everything, including themselves, to reach the stars. They're not Deathworlders, Calyx said to his crew. They're survivors. His second officer looked uncertain. What's the difference? Deathworlders are monsters that crawl from hell, Calyx explained. Survivors are beings who refuse to give up no matter how hard life becomes. The humans sent those probes because they wanted friends. They built those warships because they were afraid of being alone forever and wanted to be ready for anything. They're not coming to conquer us. They're coming because we finally answered their call. But not everyone in the galaxy saw it that way. Deep in Vryn space, a faction of extremists looked at the approaching human fleet and saw only danger. They saw creatures that breathed poison, endured crushing gravity, and built weapons designed to fight in conditions that would kill any civilized being. They saw humans as a threat that needed to be eliminated before it was too late, and they decided to strike. First, the transmission reached Sarah's fleet 3 hours later. A Vryn colony ship had been attacked. Human life support systems sabotaged. 50 human colonists dead. Sarah read the report, her face hardening. Behind her, the crew went silent. Lieutenant Park spoke quietly. "Commander, it wasn't the Council. Intelligence confirms it was a rogue faction. But our people are dead." Sarah looked out at the stars, remembering every first contact scenario humanity had imagined. Most ended in war. She had hoped reality would be different. "Send a message to Earth," she said. "Tell them we have casualties. Tell them first contact has turned hostile." She paused, the weight of command heavy on her shoulders. "And tell them to send reinforcements." In the Galactic Council chambers, alarms began blaring. Sensors detected new signatures emerging from the Sol system. Dozens of ships. Then hundreds. Then thousands. The defense fleet had been just the beginning. Now humanity's true military was waking up. And the galaxy was about to learn what happened when you hurt a species that spent millions of years learning to fight back. The news spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. Humans were real. The Deathworlders were coming. And they were angry. Ambassador Lisa Chen arrived at Zenith Prime 3 days after the attack on the colony ship. She was Sarah's younger sister, chosen for diplomatic missions because she had a talent for reading people and finding common ground. But as she stepped off the shuttle into the Council Chamber's receiving area, she saw only fear. The assembled aliens backed away from her. Some retreated into their environmental pods. Others simply stared, their alien features twisted in expressions that needed no translation. Terror was universal. Lisa was shorter than her sister, barely 160 centimeters, with a gentle face and kind eyes. She wore a simple diplomatic uniform, carried no weapons, and had spent the entire journey preparing peaceful speeches. None of it mattered. To the galaxy, she was a nightmare made flesh. "Honored council members," she began, her voice amplified through the chamber. "I come in peace to discuss what happened to our colonists and to prevent further misunderstandings." Council Elder Vex approached carefully, maintaining several meters distance. "Ambassador Chen, please understand our caution. Your very presence here is difficult for many species. Your world's gravity is 3 times what most of us can tolerate. You breathe oxygen, one of the most reactive gases in the universe. Your muscle density suggests you could tear most of us apart with your bare hands." Lisa blinked in surprise. She had never thought of herself as dangerous. On Earth, she was considered small and peaceful. But looking around the chamber, she realized that even the largest aliens present barely reached her shoulder. Their bones looked fragile as glass. Their movements were slow and careful in what must be comfortable gravity for them, but felt like a feather's touch to her. "I understand your fear," Lisa said carefully. "But I'm not here to hurt anyone. I'm here because 50 of my people were killed, murdered, and we need to know why." Wisp pulsed with apologetic colors. It was the Vryn extremist faction. They acted without council approval. They saw your fleet as an invasion force and struck preemptively. The council has condemned their actions and ordered them to surrender. "Have they?" Lisa asked. The silence that followed was answer enough. Keelik stepped forward, the young scientist who had started everything. "Ambassador, the extremists control 3 military stations and 24 warships. They're calling for other species to join them in stopping humanity before you expand beyond your system. They're showing footage of your Marines in combat armor, your warships, your weapons. They're painting you as monsters." Lisa felt anger rising but pushed it down. Getting angry wouldn't help. "May I see this footage?" They showed her the broadcasts spreading across the galaxy. Human soldiers in powered armor, towering over aliens. Human ships bristling with weapons. Human colony vessels that looked like mobile fortresses. The narration was all fear, talking about humanity's capacity for violence, their history of warfare, their evolution as apex predators. "They're not wrong," Lisa admitted quietly. "We are predators. We did evolve on a world where everything tried to kill us. We have fought wars against ourselves for thousands of years, but they're showing you only half the truth." She pulled up, her own files spreading them across the chamber's displays. Images of human children playing with pets. Human doctors working to save lives. Human artists creating beauty. Human scientists reaching for knowledge. Human families loving each other. We are also nurturers, Lisa said. We care for our sick. We adopt orphaned animals from other species. We cry at sad stories. We die protecting strangers. Yes, we can be violent, but we choose not to be. That's what makes us human. A small alien near the back of the chamber spoke up, their voice barely audible. But you came with warships. Because we were afraid, Lisa replied honestly. You have to understand. We spent 300 years calling into the void, hoping someone would answer, praying we weren't alone. And when someone finally responded, it was by announcing our location to the entire galaxy. We didn't know if you were friends or if you were painting a target on our world. She paused, looking around the chamber at faces she was learning to read. We prepared for the worst because that's what survivors do. But we hoped for the best. We still do. Council Elder Vex considered her words. What do you want from us? Justice for our dead, Lisa said. And a guarantee it won't happen again. We want to join the galaxy. We want to trade, learn, grow together. But we won't accept being victims. If the extremists want war, they'll get it. But it doesn't have to be this way. The council debated long into the night cycle. Lisa waited patiently, though her body ached in the low gravity. She understood now why the aliens feared her. To them, she was a creature of impossible strength from a world of impossible harshness. But she also understood something else. They needed humanity as much as humanity needed them. While the council argued, reports came in from across the galaxy. Human fleets had positioned themselves at key locations, not attacking, not threatening. Just present. A silent reminder that Earth could reach anywhere the Council could. More disturbing were the reports of what human ships carried. Kinetic weapons that could strike planets from orbit, nuclear arsenals, biological weapons sealed in secure vaults, and something called relativistic kill vehicles. Projectiles that could be accelerated to near light speed and strike with planet-killing force. Why do you need such weapons? Wisp asked Lisa during a break in negotiations. Because we imagined every possible threat, Lisa answered. For centuries we watched our skies and wondered what would come. Would aliens be friendly? Would they be conquerors? Would they be so different we couldn't communicate? We prepared for everything because we had no way of knowing what we'd face. You prepared to destroy planets, Wisp said, their colors flickering with horror. We prepared to defend our home, Lisa corrected. There's a difference. We hoped we'd never need these weapons. We prayed we'd make friends instead. But hope isn't a strategy. Preparation is. A junior council member, a felox named Tarn, approached Lisa during another recess. The feline alien was braver than most, curiosity overcoming fear. Is it true your world has oceans that can swallow continents? Tarn asked. Storms that tear apart landscapes? Predators that can kill your kind in seconds? Yes, Lisa confirmed. Earth is beautiful and terrible. The oceans are deep enough to hide mountains. The storms can level cities. And yes, there are creatures that can kill us easily. Sharks, lions, bears, poisonous insects, venomous snakes, even tiny bacteria that our immune systems have to fight constantly. How did you survive? Tarn asked, genuinely curious. Lisa smiled. We learned. We adapted. We built tools and communities. We developed medicine and technology. We turned our biggest weakness, our fragility compared to Earth's dangers, into our greatest strength. We became problem solvers, and when we finally left Earth, we carried that strength with us. She pulled up an image of Earth from space, the blue marble that was humanity's cradle. We love our world. Every human dreams of the day we can share it with others. But we also know most species would die there in minutes. The gravity would crush you. The oxygen would burn your lungs. The diseases would kill you before you left the spaceport. So we built habitats, space stations. We learned to live in your environment so someday you could visit ours safely. Tarn's whiskers twitched with interest. You want us to visit Earth? Eventually, Lisa said. When there's trust, when we're friends. I want to show you our mountains and oceans, our cities and forests. I want you to taste our food, hear our music, experience our culture. Not as invaders or conquered people, but as welcome guests. The conversation was interrupted by alarms. News had arrived from the frontier. The Vryn extremists had attacked another human vessel. This time the humans had fought back. The footage was brutal. Human marines storming an extremist station. Their powered armor shrugging off alien weapons that would have killed unprotected beings. Human soldiers moving through environments that no other species could tolerate. Fighting in corridors exposed to vacuum, in temperatures that would freeze most aliens solid. But what shocked the Council most was the human restraint. Despite their overwhelming advantage, despite their anger over murdered colonists, the human forces used non-lethal weapons whenever possible. They captured extremists instead of killing them. They provided medical care to wounded aliens. They showed mercy to beings who had shown them none. They're still following rules, Council Elder Vex said in amazement, even in combat. Even when angry. They're following laws of war. Lisa nodded grimly. We've fought ourselves for millennia. We learned hard lessons about what happens when violence has no limits. We made rules. Geneva Conventions. Rules of engagement. Protection for prisoners and civilians. We follow these rules because we know what we're capable of when we don't. The Council finally reached a decision. They would condemn the extremists. They would work with humanity to bring the murderers to justice. And they would begin formal diplomatic relations with Earth. But even as the agreement was signed, reports arrived that changed everything. A new fleet had entered the sector. Not human, not Council. Something else entirely. The Catharn Dominion had arrived, drawn by rumors of a species worthy of conquest. And they were heading directly for Earth. The Catharn Dominion had ruled their corner of the galaxy for 2,000 years through simple philosophy. Might makes right. They conquered weaker species, absorbed their technology, and moved on to the next target. They had never lost a war because they had never met an opponent strong enough to resist them. High Commander Zark stood on the bridge of the Dominion flagship, studying sensor reports of the Sol system. His species resembled Earth's reptiles, large and scaled, with razor-sharp claws and teeth designed for tearing meat. Unlike most galaxy species, the Catharn had evolved as predators. That made them dangerous. It also made them arrogant. So these are the humans, Zark said, examining the tactical data. The Council fears them. The Vryn extremists couldn't defeat them. Interesting. His tactical officer, a smaller Catharn named Vess, highlighted several ships on the display. Their fleet is impressive, Commander. Over 200 warships, multiple classes, advanced weapons. But they're spread thin across the sector. If we strike Earth directly, we can cripple them before they regroup. Zark's mouth split in what his species considered a smile. The Vryn made a useful mistake revealing these Deathworlders. A species that evolved in harshness, survived impossible conditions, built weapons to fight their own kind. They'll be a challenge. Finally, a worthy opponent. The Catharn fleet consisted of 300 vessels, each built for one purpose: overwhelming force. They didn't believe in elegant tactics or careful strategy. They believed in hitting hard and fast until the enemy broke. Set course for Earth, Zark ordered. We'll see if these humans are as dangerous as the rumors claim. The warning reached Earth 6 hours before the Catharn fleet arrived. Sarah Chen, now promoted to admiral after the extremist conflicts, stood in Earth's orbital command center watching the approaching threat. 300 ships, Lieutenant Park reported. Catharn Dominion. Military records show they've conquered 14 species in the past century. They don't negotiate. They don't take prisoners. They just attack. Sarah felt ice in her veins. This was it. The scenario humanity had feared for 3 centuries. A hostile alien invasion of Earth itself. Activate all defense platforms, Sarah ordered. Recall every ship within 3 light hours. Get civilian transports away from Earth and Mars. Prepare the moon bases for combat operations. Her hands trembled slightly as she sent the next order. Unseal the weapons we swore we'd never use. Authorization code Chen Alpha 7. If they want Earth, they'll have to go through hell to get it. Across the Sol system, humanity's true military awakened. The defense fleet had been impressive. The reinforcement fleets had been intimidating. But now the Catharn would face something different. Humans defending their home. Weapons platforms hidden in asteroid fields powered up. Railguns embedded in Luna's surface aligned their barrels toward the approaching enemy. Missile silos on Mars opened like flowers blooming, and deep in Earth's ocean trenches submarines rose carrying weapons that could crack continents. The Galactic Council watched in horror from Zenith Prime. They had been negotiating with humanity for weeks, slowly building trust. Now that fragile peace was about to be tested by the galaxy's most ruthless conquerors. "We have to help them," Keelix argued before the Council. "The Catharn are attacking because we revealed humanity's existence. This is our fault." Council Elder Vex looked torn. "The Catharn Dominion is powerful. If we intervene, they might target our worlds next." "If we don't intervene," Wisp pulsed urgently, "we prove to humanity that we're cowards who abandon our allies. Either we're with them or against them. There's no middle ground now." Ambassador Lisa Chen's voice cut through the debate, transmitted from the diplomatic vessel racing back to Earth. "We're not asking for your help. We're telling you to stay back. This is our fight. We'll handle it." "You can't win," Vex protested. "The Catharn have never been defeated." "Neither have we," Lisa replied coldly. "Not when defending our home." The Catharn fleet arrived at the edge of the Sol system expecting fear and chaos. Instead, they found organized resistance. Human ships had formed defensive formations around Earth, layered in depth, each position carefully chosen. It looked professional. Almost boring, Zark was disappointed. "They're fighting like civilized species. Defensive formations. Calculated positions. Where's the fury we heard about? Where are the Deathworlders?" "Perhaps the rumors were exaggerated," Vess suggested. "They might surrender when they see our numbers." The Catharn transmitted their standard demand: immediate surrender or total destruction. The human response came from Admiral Sarah Chen herself. "This is Earth Defense Command. You've entered our space without permission and threatened our home. Leave now or face the consequences." Zark laughed, the sound echoing through his bridge. "Attack all ships. Show them what happens when they defy the Dominion." The Catharn fleet surged forward in a massive wave, exactly as they'd done in 100 previous conquests. It had always worked before. Why would this time be different? They learned the answer immediately. The space around the Catharn fleet suddenly filled with debris. Not random asteroids, but carefully placed chunks of metal and rock, accelerated to incredible speeds by hidden railguns. The Catharn shields handled most of it, but the sheer volume forced them to slow down and tighten formation. That's when the humans struck from unexpected angles. "Where did those ships come from?" Zark demanded, as his sensors showed human vessels emerging from positions that should have been impossible. "Behind the moon, within the asteroid belt, even skimming the upper atmosphere of Jupiter. They're using the system itself as cover," Vess reported, his voice showing respect despite himself. "They know their territory perfectly." The battle became chaos. The Catharn expected a straightforward fleet engagement. Instead, they got guerrilla warfare on a solar system scale. Human ships would strike, then disappear behind planets or moons. Weapons platforms would fire from distances the Catharn considered extreme, then go silent before return fire arrived. And the weapons themselves were shocking. The Catharn had energy shields designed to stop directed energy weapons and conventional missiles. They weren't prepared for relativistic projectiles. Simple chunks of metal accelerated to a significant fraction of light speed. When those hit, shields meant nothing. The kinetic energy simply overwhelmed them. "They're using primitive weapons," Zark snarled. "Rocks and metal. How is this working?" "Because at those speeds, anything becomes a planet killer," Vess explained. "Commander, their weapons aren't sophisticated. They're brutal, efficient, cheap. They can throw thousands of these projectiles for the cost of one of our plasma torpedoes." The Catharn pushed forward, taking losses but confident in their numerical advantage. They had 300 ships. The humans couldn't stop them all. Then the moon fired. Luna had been transformed over centuries into a fortress. Railguns the size of skyscrapers, powered by fusion reactors, launched projectiles that crossed the distance to the Catharn fleet in seconds. Each shot carried enough kinetic energy to vaporize a ship. "Fall back," Zark ordered, his confidence shaken. "Regroup at the system's edge." But the humans didn't let them retreat cleanly. Fightercraft, small and quick, harassed the Catharn fleet. Drones, expendable and numerous, flew suicide runs into damaged ships, and human vessels kept appearing from impossible directions, striking and fading like ghosts. The Catharn regrouped, bloodied but not broken. They had lost 40 ships, in a single engagement. It should have been impossible. "What are these creatures?" Vess whispered, studying the battle reports. Zark watched his displays, seeing patterns he'd never encountered before. The humans weren't fighting like civilized species. They weren't following expected tactics. They were fighting like predators defending territory. They're doing to us what they did to each other for millennia, Zark realized. This isn't military doctrine. This is survival instinct refined into strategy. A transmission came through from Earth. Admiral Sarah Chen appeared on screen, and Zark finally understood what a human looked like without armor, smaller than he expected, fragile seeming. But her eyes held something that made his scales itch with primal recognition, determination. "Catharn, Commander," Sarah said. "You've lost 40 ships and haven't even reached Earth's orbit. We have hundreds of platforms you haven't seen yet, weapons we haven't used, and if you somehow reach our planet, you'll face 7 billion humans who will fight you in our gravity, breathing our air, in conditions we were born to. You might win eventually, but it will cost you everything." She paused, and her next words carried weight. "Or you can leave now while you still can. We don't want to exterminate you, but we will if we have to." Zark stared at the human admiral, seeing something he'd never seen before in an opponent. Absolute conviction. She wasn't bluffing. She wasn't posturing. She was stating fact. For the first time in 2,000 years of conquest, the Catharn Dominion faced a choice: continue and possibly win at devastating cost, or retreat and preserve their fleet. Zark made his decision, but before he could give the order, new contacts appeared on sensors. Dozens of ships emerging from FTL, not human ships. Council vessels, Friend cruisers, Velox destroyers, even small Krillian defense craft. The Galactic Council had made their choice too. They were standing with humanity. Kalix stood on the bridge of his flagship, the heart racing in his chest as they emerged from FTL at Earth's doorstep. Behind him came the combined fleet of the Galactic Council. 60 ships, not many compared to the Catharn or even the humans, but it was everything the Council could muster on short notice. "This is insane," his second officer muttered. "We're not warriors. Most of our ships are explorers or transports. What can we possibly do against the Catharn?" "We can show the humans they're not alone," Kalix replied firmly. "They came to the galaxy hoping for friends. We're going to be those friends." The combined fleet positioned themselves alongside the human defensive line. On every bridge screen, Admiral Sarah Chen's face appeared, and Kalix saw something remarkable. The hard, determined expression softened. Just for a moment, the human warrior looked like she might cry. "Council fleet," Sarah said, her voice rough with emotion. "You didn't have to come?" "Yes, we did," Council Elder Vex replied, his 6 arms gesturing in the Krillian equivalent of a salute. "The Catharn came because we revealed your existence. That makes this our responsibility. Besides, you're part of the galaxy now. We protect our own." Kalix watched his sensors as more ships continued arriving. Wisp species had sent environmental support vessels. Tarn's Velox people contributed fast attack craft. Even species that had never left their home system sent what they could: medical ships, supply transports, anything that might help. On the Catharn flagship, High Commander Zark stared at the display in disbelief. The galaxy's peaceful species, the ones who had always scattered before the Dominion's might, were standing against him. For humans, for Deathworlders they'd just met. "They're making a mistake," Zark said. "Target the Council ships first. Show them the price of defying us," but Vess hesitated. "Commander, if we attack Council worlds, every species in the galaxy will unite against us. We'll face not just humans, but everyone. We don't have the numbers for that." Zark's claws dug into his command chair. The tactical situation had changed. He could probably still take Earth, but at what cost? His fleet against the humans was one thing. His fleet against the humans plus the entire Galactic Council was another. "Final offer." Sarah's voice cut through his thoughts. "Leave now. We'll consider this a misunderstanding. No pursuit, no revenge, just leave and don't come back." It was the smart choice. Zark knew it. But pride was a powerful thing, and the Catharn had never retreated before. He looked at his remaining ships, at the combined fleet facing him, at the planet beyond covered in humans who had turned their whole moon into a weapon. "Attack their flagship," Zark ordered. "If we can kill their commander, maybe the rest will scatter." The Catharn Dominion's most powerful vessel, the Conqueror's Pride, accelerated toward Sarah's command ship. Energy weapons charged, missiles locked on. The human flagship didn't move, didn't evade, just waited. Then space itself seemed to catch fire, Every human ship opened fire simultaneously, not at the Catharn fleet, but at the single vessel threatening their admiral. Railgun projectiles, missiles, energy weapons, everything humanity had built to defend Earth converged on one target. The Conqueror's pride lasted 3 seconds. Its shields overloaded, its armor vaporized. The ship broke apart in a flash of nuclear fire. Zark watched from his secondary command ship, frozen in shock. The humans had just demonstrated something terrifying. They could focus their entire military might on a single target and erase it from existence in heartbeats. Message from the humans, Vess reported quietly. Admiral Chen says that was a warning. The next shot will be aimed at your ship. Leave, now. Zark looked around his bridge, seeing fear in his crew's eyes for the first time. The Catharn were predators, yes, but they'd just met apex predators, beings that had spent millions of years evolving to kill things that threatened them. Retreat, Zark ordered, the word bitter on his tongue. All ships, back to Dominion space. The Catharn fleet turned and fled, and humanity let them go. As the last enemy ship vanished into FTL, a cheer went up across the combined fleet. Humans and aliens celebrating together, the first shared victory in what would become a long alliance. Sarah Chen slumped in her command chair, exhaustion hitting her like a physical blow. They'd won, Earth was safe, and they'd done it with allies at their side. Admiral, Lieutenant Park said softly, we're receiving thousands of transmissions from the Council fleet. They're all saying the same thing. Welcome to the galaxy, Sarah smiled, tears finally falling. 300 years of loneliness. 300 years of wondering if humanity would face the universe alone. The answer had come in the best possible way. Send response to all ships, Sarah ordered. Thank you. From Earth, from humanity, thank you for standing with us. The victory celebration lasted 3 days. Council ships visited Earth orbit and humans visited alien vessels in return. Cultural exchanges began immediately. Humans shared their music and aliens shared theirs. Humans offered food, carefully synthesized to match alien biology, and received alien delicacies in return. Calyx found himself on Earth, in a specially built low-gravity habitat, where he could meet humans face-to-face without being crushed. Sarah and Lisa Chen both came to greet him, and the young Vryn scientist found himself hugging creatures that had terrified him weeks earlier. You saved us, Lisa said simply. You brought the Council fleet. You showed us we weren't alone. You saved yourselves, Calyx corrected. We just stood beside you. But I'm glad we did. I've learned something important these past weeks. Strength isn't about muscle or weapons. It's about refusing to give up. You humans taught the galaxy that lesson. The formal treaty was signed a week later at Zenith Prime. Earth would join the Galactic Council as a full member. In return, humanity would share their defensive technology and serve as the Council's military protectors. Not conquerors, protectors. The original Voyager probe was returned to Earth in a ceremony that had humans and aliens crying together. It was placed in a museum on Earth, in a chamber where the gravity was adjusted so any species could visit. The plaque beneath it read, "The message that changed everything." Calyx became Earth's first alien ambassador, working from a station in orbit where he could interact with humans without danger. He found the work rewarding, teaching aliens about humans, teaching humans about the galaxy, building bridges between species that had started as enemies and become friends. One day, a human child visited the station on a school trip. She was small, maybe 8 years old, and she stared at Calyx with wide eyes full of wonder. "Are you really an alien?" she asked. "I am," Calyx confirmed, his translator rendering his words in the child's language. "Were you scared of us?" the child asked. "My teacher said you thought we were monsters." Calyx knelt down, bringing himself to the child's eye level. "I was scared at first. You're very different from my people, strong and tough in ways I can barely imagine. But then I learned something important. You're not monsters. You're just people from a hard world who refuse to let that hardness make you cruel." The child thought about that, then held out her hand. "Want to be friends?" Calyx carefully took the tiny hand in his own, marveling at the grip strength even in a child. "We already are friends, all of us. The whole galaxy." Years passed. The alliance between humanity and the Council grew stronger. Human colony ships spread through the stars, but always with Council approval, always with respect for existing territories. In return, Alien species visited Earth, protected by special habitats and medical technology that let them survive the death world humans called home. The Catharn Dominion never attacked again. Rumors said they'd learned their lesson. Others said they'd simply found easier targets elsewhere. But the truth was simpler. They'd seen what happened when you threatened humanity's home, and they'd decided some fights weren't worth the cost. New human cities rose on Mars and Luna, built to accommodate both humans and aliens. Trade flourished. Science advanced as humans and aliens shared knowledge. Art and culture blended in beautiful ways. And deep in space, more Voyager probes still drifted, carrying their messages of peace and hope. But now when they were found, the response wasn't confusion or fear. It was recognition. The galaxy knew about humanity now. The Deathworlders who'd become defenders. The survivors who'd become friends. On the anniversary of First Contact, now a holiday celebrated by 20 species, Sarah Chen stood before the Galactic Council giving a speech. She'd retired from military service but remained active in human-alien relations. "We spent centuries searching for a place in the cosmos," Sarah said, her voice carrying through the great chamber. "We sent probes and signals hoping someone would answer. We built weapons because we were afraid of what we might find. We prepared for the worst while hoping for the best." She paused, looking around at the assembled aliens who'd become her friends. "What we found was better than anything we imagined. Not a galaxy of enemies, but a galaxy of potential allies. Not monsters, but people. Different people, yes. People who breathe different air and need different gravity and see different colors. But people nonetheless. The misunderstanding that brought us together could have led to war. Instead, it led to friendship. Because when it mattered, when we were threatened, you stood with us. And now we stand with you. Forever." The council chamber erupted in approval. 40 species expressing joy in 40 different ways. That night, Kalix stood in his quarters looking at Earth through the viewport. The blue planet turned slowly, beautiful and deadly. Home to beings who'd conquered their world and then reached for the stars. He thought about how far they'd all come since he'd found that old probe drifting in space. A message notification appeared on his display. From Sarah Chen, though she'd long since stopped being Admiral and was just Sarah now. It contained a single image. The golden record from the Voyager probe and a human family standing beside it in the museum. The message was simple. "Thank you for answering." Kalix smiled, his alien features forming an expression that humans had taught him meant happiness. He typed his response carefully. "Thank you for calling." The galaxy was vast and full of wonders. Humanity had spent so long alone in the darkness calling out, hoping for an answer. Now they knew the truth. They'd never been alone. They'd just been waiting for the right moment to find their place among the stars. And when that moment came, when the Deathworlders finally met the galaxy, they didn't bring conquest. They brought hope. They brought friendship. They brought the stubborn determination of a species that refused to give up, no matter how dark the void or how long the silence. The galaxy was better for it. And so was humanity. The message that changed everything wasn't distress call at all. It was an invitation. An invitation that took 300 years to be accepted. But when it finally was, it brought together beings from across the stars in the most unlikely of alliances. The Deathworlders had come to the galaxy, and the galaxy was stronger for it.